Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. To our American friends, hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I am still wearing my elastic pants. Damn leftovers. They are truly the devil. Today, we switch things up a little bit. We bring you some of the best content going outside of tactics and all sorts. And it's Ask the Gaffer, and I've got questions for one of our favourites. Let's rock and roll, squaddies.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Hello, hello, hello. For those who've been able to join live at this 6 p.m. hour in the UK, thank you so much for joining. And for those listening on replay, thank you. Our iTunes is also back up and running, so you can catch all the shows on audio as well. We welcome back one of our show favorites. I wanted to get inside the mind of the manager. It's one of those seasons where things are really interesting, Premier League wise. So as Big Ben chimes, let's welcome one of our favourite Brits, Mr. Paul Buckle. Welcome back to Squad Central.
Hi, Soph.
How you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Yeah, excited to be back on the show. Again, an exciting Premier League. A lot's changed since last time we spoke.
Yeah, a lot has changed, no doubt about that. How was your Thanksgiving? Because Paul is also currently in California and does the whole Americana thing. How was your Thanksgiving? You wearing elastic pants this morning?
No, I had my pride hurt yesterday. So me, Rebecca, and Teddy decided to do a 5-mile turkey trot.
Oh,
Took it quite seriously actually. Me and Teddy did a little bit of training. Did sort of a mile or 2-mile run. Got to the event. Decided again to stick together. Bex walked it because she got sore knees, but. Yeah, Teddy left me behind on 2 miles. He opened up, and I was brought down to earth by our 8-year-old. So
wow.
Going into it with high hopes. I've had my confidence dented. So yeah,
Dang.
that was a poor start to Thanksgiving, but yeah, a lot of fun. We had a great day.
He totally Eza'd you. He just left you in the dust.
He really did. He really did. I remember them days where I could run all day. He said to me, Dad, he said, "Can we do it again?" I said, "No, not for another year, Ted."
Quiet, son, quiet. Well, welcome to the show, our Chief Like Officer. Not sure why your message at the top didn't come through this morning, but please do hit the like button, do what Tammy says. Harvey, welcome back. Wexford, Ian is here, and the whole jam. Carol is here. Thank you so much for joining, BX and Pete as well. Good to see you all in the house. Right, let's get stuck in. We face West Ham this weekend. We're going to get Paul's prediction and thoughts on that on the way out. But I wanted to bring Paul in today because I think it's a real fascinating time for managers in the Premier League. Maybe it's because Pep's going through this adversity, Slot coming in and having a better record already at the start of a season than Klopp. Everyone thought they would go through a transitional period. Mikel Arteta faced adversity early. Let's see what type of manager he is. Maresca comes into a Chelsea team that were much maligned. And then you've got kind of the Anges and the Unais and now the Rubins of the world. So we'll get Paul's take on all of that. But let's start at the very tippy top of the mountain. And thank you to our friends at Football Prizes for always supporting us. Please make sure you go to footballprizes.co.uk, grab that Patrick Vieira shirt, $3.95 a ticket, and the auction ends on Tuesday, the 3rd of December. Right, Paul, let's rock and roll. Let's start with Pep Guardiola. It is a fascinating season. Came out of that Champions League game with some scraps on his forehead, which I wanted to ask you about first. Seemed like to me there might have been a bit of a dressing room bust up afterwards, but we'll get to that. Do you think this is a case of in adversity? is Pep's message not resonating anymore? When you have the same voice and that intense voice that we know Pep has for so many seasons, do you see that having been in the dressing room at the top, at the bottom battling relegation? What is your take on Pep and what seems to be a disconnect between him and his team right now?
Well, it's a brilliant question. First of all, I didn't see this coming at all. You know, they had 5 straight wins so before this poor run that they're on. So I didn't see it coming. He's never experienced this before in his managerial career. So I would imagine it's been really humbling for him. He certainly seems to have changed in his post-match interviews. He's nowhere near as bullish as he normally is. You know, you normally see him take offence to a question. I think he's back right down of late. And really and truthfully, I think the Rodri injury has really rocked them. I think this is a case of where you can see bringing in a player like that, the effect, not just on the field in terms of what he brings technically, tactically, but the effect on the other players and that leadership on the field. So he's really been hit, Pep. Against Spurs, they never scored, so never ahead. Well beaten. And then the last one, to be 3-0 up, he's probably thinking, like, we're back to it. We found our magic touch again. And they end up drawing, and it's going to be like a defeat. There's no two ways about it. So he's being faced now with loads of different challenges that the normal manager would have to face most seasons. So it's really going to be a testing time for him now. But I wouldn't put it past them getting a result at Liverpool. So if I wouldn't, yeah. I think it's good for the game what's happening. I think it's healthy. I think we have got a mixture of managers, like you said there. Those managers, they've all got different styles, all got different ways. And I think even now with how Klopp managed, you can see clearly how he managed now when you're looking at someone like Slot on the side, right? But I think that Pep now, the squad isn't as big as probably what it should have been. I think Arsenal have suffered a little bit with that as well, Soph. You know, with not having a bigger squad. You can always tell by the bench how good the squad is. I've always maintained that. And I think that now losing a couple of players and maybe losing that leadership, he's really got to find different managerial skill sets.
And losing Rodri in the dressing room from a leadership point of view isn't easy. You know, it's funny. I feel like other teams get crucified a little bit. We did, stop moaning. You've lost Martin Odegaard. You've got to find a way to win. And there's no excuse for them because they still have talent like for like. They have had injuries, yes. But this is where I find it fascinating that, some managers are called, banker managers. What can you really do with a team when you don't have your best players? And one of the reasons I wanted to ask you about his voice resonating is because also I don't know if this is crazy, but I mean, is it possible that winning too much has impacted their motivation, Paul?
I think they've got over that hurdle because they've won a lot, Soph, right? They've won an awful lot. I think an example was Grealish. I think Grealish over-celebrated that treble. I really do. I think that was an individual where you've seen a real dip in form after that, almost like, can't find the motivation. It's like over-celebrating a goal. Sometimes I would say to my team, don't over-celebrate the goal because then you see the opposition score immediately after, right? Because the arousal levels have gone right up and then right down, and then the opposition team that's conceded, arousal levels are up and you can get caught out. I think there could be a case of that where, and the team's not been in this situation where it's really got to dig in, right? Really got to dig in now. And the microscope is on them, the lens is on them. But I think it can be more as well as the depth of the squad, how the squad's managed with the players. We spoke before about the ones that are not playing. Are they motivated when they come back in? It can be a number of things, but I think that it could be that. But at the same time, I do think the team's aging. I do think they might have missed the trick in the cycle ending with this group. And sort of maybe a year ago they should have been looking at replacing and bringing players in and being proactive. Pep's definitely someone that improves the players. So, I think it's very similar with Mikel. They improve players, but there's a time span on that. You haven't got the ready-made. Okay, so he's definitely improved those players and got those players playing together for a number of years to win things. And does he have the backup now? Do they have the players now to come in and continue the cycle?
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about Jack Grealish. Sometimes you think, well, they're human. He's just probably achieved the pinnacle of, career-wise and stuff. And it's you don't want to kind of hit him too hard, but when your form does dip, I totally agree with you. And Pep didn't like that either, very much at all. And winning that treble, I'm not going to say it's a blessing and a curse because any team would want that. But it was like matching Manchester United, then winning the fourth and creating history. Sometimes when you're not maybe as strong motivationally as a young player, I can see those things affecting you. Paul, let's get to the last one on Pep here. You mentioned it at the top of the hour, the conceding. This is, to me, if Arsenal had done this, we would have been absolutely ripped to shreds and thrown out into the ocean. If any other team, if Manchester United have done this, to be fair to them, the same would have happened. I'm not saying that they got away with it a little bit, but you're 3-0 up at home in the Champions League, and the first goal goes in. You know that your side is a little bit fragile. As the manager, take us inside of the mind. When you're standing on the sidelines, is there that moment where you think there's nothing I can do about how this script is going to unfold?
Well, I've been there. It's like 2-0 is normally the one, Soph, right? If you go in at half time at 2-0, that's a real precarious scoreline. Always has been. You've got to, do you stick or twist, right? Sit on the 2-0, sit back a bit, or go and grab that third. But when you get to the third, it's game over, especially in the 60th minute, the second half, because there's going to be a desperation about the opposition, right? They're gonna throw things forward. There's going to be spaces, and we all know over the years, if you give Manchester City any space, they're going to kill you. It's as simple as that. So this will be a huge shock. But in body language sometimes, and the way things are going, sometimes you can get a feeling as a manager. I mean, I never felt comfortable. I never ever felt comfortable, even at 3-0.
Why is that 2-0 thing? Why is that 2-0 thing a thing, Paul?
I think because the opposition, like if they're getting a half time 2-0, the manager will get right into them. Okay. Your team might be thinking, job done. Right? We've scored 2. You probably would have had more chances as well to make it 3. But the opposition really have still got a chance on the 2-0. And so many times you'll see it. Because if a team is normally, and this is why I respect managers like Pep and Mikel and Ange, because they go for it, whatever, like they go for it. So, they won't sit in. There's nothing worse than sitting in and then conceding. Because, but at the same time, it's a natural thing sometimes to sit back and protect what you've got. Okay, so I think this is a completely different challenge for Pep, where I don't know if he'd have ever been 3-0 up before in his whole career and tied the game, drawn the game. So I think there's a character. You'd have to look at it and say, is there a flaw in the character? Is there a flaw in the team? Is there a bit of the desire gone? The hunger? Is there a complacency setting in now? Was he able to see it and make changes? I mean, all these things, sometimes you can get 3-0 up and say, right, I'll take a couple of players off and bring a couple on and it can go wrong. So I just think the moment they're in, it looks like even the best Soph can suffer from confidence.
Yeah.
So,
And it feels like that. You said it at the top of the show. Yeah, he just feels different. You don't get that bravado at all. You feel like he's on the ropes, not because he's going to lose his job, but just from, I think he's shook. Even he's like, whoa, what's happening? And that is evident in how he's kind of carrying himself as well. Okay, that is Pep Guardiola. Let us know what you think. Those of you who'll be catching up on replay on the Pep Guardiola questions in adversity. Maybe is the team not resonating and his voice is a little bit tired? Has winning too much impacted their motivation and conceding and being able to control the script as it unfolds in front of you as a manager on the sideline? Let us know what you think. Okay. You're going to have to wait for Mikel Arteta squaddies, but hit that like button like our Tammy Steels is asking you to. Let's get to number 2, and that's Arne Slot, Liverpool, the darling of the media currently, and maybe rightly so, and deserved. But, you know, you as a manager, you go into a new situation, and I'm going to kind of maybe make 1 and 2 combined here, because I think you need to be lucky in football, but I think it's undeniable that Liverpool have been the best team so far this season. Did Slot inherit a spine already built for success, Paul? Are we able to truly judge him? Do we have to wait till the end of the season? The players that he had there, quite incredible when you look at especially their force going forward, the midfield, super impressive. What's your take on Slot? He beats Real Madrid. I think they had 6 players out. You can only beat who's in front of you. You go into a new club, you've got good players there. What's your thoughts from the managerial side with regards to Slot?
Well, first of all, I think he's made one hell of a decision to go to Liverpool. I think he would have looked at it. He looks a really intelligent guy, so if he looks like he's very calm, doesn't show much emotion, unlike Klopp. I think they're polar opposites really on the side. You don't see any sort of antics after the game. I shouldn't say antics because it's part of the game and all managers different, but it's no like fist pump or anything like that. And I think that's been reflective in the play. I think in the style of play, in the way you've seen Liverpool play, they look assured. They look very, very good right now. And I think that the decision to come in, I think what he's done is he said, right, what does the team need? I've got a great squad at my disposal. And I think unlike Manchester City, they do have a bigger squad. And they do have players that are now really, really in their prime, really in their prime. You know, if you look at the performances of Jones, if you look at Bradley, there's a hunger there. I mean, Robertson always looks hungry. I think Van Dijk looks in total control, like he's been given like carte blanche on the pitch. Every time they come out, it's Van Dijk slow on that left side with the ball. And I think the speed of play changes with this Liverpool team. They're able to rest with the ball, whereas I think it was 100 mile an hour under Klopp all the time. And maybe the players like this more. Maybe they like this style of play more. Maybe they like it not being deemed all about the manager, right? Because we know now with the players, the egos they carry now and how good they are, that it needs to be about the players. And I think this manager does make it about the players. And I think a lot of trust is going into the players, and I think they're responding. But I do think, you know, when you look at the two managers, they are very, very different. And I think Anfield the other night at the Real Madrid game was electric. And like I say, the performance of someone like Bradley against Mbappe was incredible performance. And the other player was Gravenberch, who, you know, has come from the sidelines in, looks like he's fitted like a glove. Jones, as I say, so impressed with him, and they just look like they can score at any time, and that nothing's a problem to them right now. Even in the game at Southampton, so where they wasn't at their best, they just looked like they was going to still win the game and have enough on the field or from the bench to go and do it. So he's really come in and done an incredible job, not just on the field with the results, but just the way he's held himself, carried himself.
I agree with you. And unfortunately, kind of as a rival looking at Liverpool, he's very likable. And I don't like that. Like Klopp was very likable at the beginning, but then he developed, I don't know, he got a little testy and just kind of carried himself in more of a arrogant way than a confident way, like you said, with the antics on the sideline and stuff like that. And with Arne Slot, it just feels like, you know, he's fearless. Like, he's unfazed by inheriting that job from an absolutely legendary manager who Liverpool fans fell in love with. And there was someone in the comment section that said they were at Anfield. Asfar, I was at Anfield on Wednesday, and the fans love Arne Slot. I was a spy standing at the Kop. That's brilliant. But yeah, I mean, they've fallen in love with him pretty quickly. And they've got that atmosphere going. Before we move on to our next manager, I wanted to ask you, that midfield is great, but you mentioned, I actually think beware the wounded animal with Manchester City. Like, if they get humiliated by Liverpool, it's more than just a crisis. There's maybe it's the 115 alleged charges. Maybe they know some stuff that we don't. Maybe there's just something like there's a small disease growing in the dressing room. Who knows? I think that if Liverpool win this game convincingly against Manchester City, that would be a real marker, won't it, for Slot and his team?
Yeah, I think it will be. I wouldn't say it'd be the end of the title race where City are concerned, but it'll be a huge dent. A huge dent. I think there's a surprise. I really think that City can go there and win. You know, Pep doesn't become a poor manager overnight, that's for sure. So I think there's high risk for City. But again, Pep Guardiola is a top manager, and the players will be motivated in that type of atmosphere. They'll know they're top professionals. They'll know what's on the line. They'll know they've been through a bad patch. And as I say, 5 wins in a row prior to this. I'm just wondering whether something's gone on. I'm wondering whether something has gone on in-house. And also you never know with the negotiations around a contract, for the manager. You never quite know. That's always a difficult time, and can be if other players or players in the squad are looking at their contracts as well sometimes and thinking that they should be signing a new one, and then the manager signs a new one. You know, so you never quite know.
Yeah.
But it's a big swing. It's a big shift, and I wouldn't be surprised if something comes out, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe there were some players that felt like, you know, it was deemed at the end of the season, Pep would be leaving. And maybe some players were prepared for that. But let's see how that unfolds and what happens. Okay, so let us have your take on Arne Slot. Lucky or good this season, I think he's proving to be really, really good. Inherited a spine already built for success. How much do you agree or disagree with that? He still has to manage at the end of the day. And, you know, he started off the season better than any other Liverpool manager. Real Madrid, was that the marker, even though they had players missing? Okay, this one I find fascinating, and I've been looking forward to it. Before we get on to our very own gaffer, Mikel Arteta, so stay tuned, squaddies. Enzo Maresca. There was a lot of noise at Chelsea at the start of the season, during the summer. They were really the laughing stock of football. The owner, and of course, Pochettino leaving by mutual consent, didn't want to just be a coach, and the role that Maresca kind of embraced, and I'll get to this point about just focusing on the team. They have gone from a laughing stock to growing stock, in my opinion, Paul. Is that down to the gaffer? Is that down to the players, considering what a bit of a mess Chelsea have been with some of the players? Of course, he had the Enzo Fernandez fiasco that he had to deal with too, then hands him the captain's armband. Seems like he stepped back from that a little bit. He hasn't been playing. Talk to me a little bit about going from laughing stock, growing stock, and is this down to Maresca?
Well, I think it's down to the club. I mean, the club come under a lot of scrutiny, you know, with their signings and with the length of the contract. And Chelsea's been in a bit of a mess for quite a while. So I think credit has to go to the club, okay, with appointing Maresca. And then, you know, looking at the role. So the role in terms of being the head coach, you know, there's a lot going on with that. This is a dynamic we see change in probably in the last, 5 to 10 years, where manager's not the manager no more. He's the head coach. What does that mean? Well, he's not managing the players off the field all the time. He's not involved in negotiations on monies. He's not always picking the players now, right? So what he has got, he's got a hunger to coach. You can see that in him, that he wants to coach. He's obviously a very good coach. And it looks like he's being left just to do that alone. And there can be huge pluses to that. I witnessed it at Southampton when Ralph was in charge, Ralph Hasselhuter, and Ross Wilson, who's now at Nottingham Forest, who was the sporting director there at the time. We have sporting directors now, technical directors, these guys that the in between the owners and the head coach. And they can take on an awful lot. And I saw that with Ross, and he did it fantastically well. And that's been proven. If you look at the clubs that Ross Wilson's been at, Huddersfield, Watford, Southampton, now at Forest, it's a really, really crucial role. And if you get it right, you really can be a great support to the manager. And I saw Ross be that to Ralph, and I'm sure he's doing the same now. He was very supportive with the 21s, which I was involved in. Okay, right through. You saw him every day coming in, and he had a great chemistry. You could see a really good chemistry between the two of them. Wasn't looking for his job, wasn't, them type of things, which on the flip side, if you get it wrong, if you get that dynamic wrong in the club, you're in trouble. You're in real trouble, because managers feel the pressure. It's an insecure job, and you need support. There's not many people that can support the manager. So it's a crucial role, and I think Chelsea have got that part right. I don't know for sure, but I think they've got that part of it right, Sophie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that, and I want to talk about Arsenal next, but because we're talking about this now, I'll ask you this now. It's a question I've been asking LA Galaxy head coach Greg Vanney all season, right? LA Galaxy have been a mess. You're talking about the five-star storied team, the Manchester United of MLS, David Beckham, Zlatan, Steven Gerrard, Robbie Keane, Landon Donovan, title winning. And it's been a bit of a mess. And it was a mess at the top with Chris Klein, who was in charge of all of that stuff. And Greg Vanney was also had a role in the recruitment. This season, he's totally just been the coach. And it is a totally different side. It's totally different team. He won MLS Cup with Toronto as well. And now you're seeing that they're in, the final coming up this weekend. And it's amazing when the pressure, that type of pressure, the admin side of it is taken off the manager. And now I wanted to ask you too, because a lot of fans think Edu leaving doesn't really affect Mikel too much. They've built a very good trusting relationship. But while we're on this subject, I wanted to ask you, Arsenal Football Club will hire someone great, someone super talented, perhaps. What do you think of that, Edu, Mikel losing Edu in this moment? What that means for him? The adversity we went through, yes, of course, we had terrible injuries, losing players to red cards. Do you think that had an impact?
I do. I really do. Like I said there, I think the trust in it is the biggest thing. I think Mikel had that in Edu. I think he would have had that. And sometimes a manager, if a sporting director or technical director moves on, and it's for a bigger club or a bigger experience, and no problem, then they're hard to replace. They are hard to replace. But I do think now it's a really, really important role. I really do. Even for the manager to speak to after the game, somebody to talk to after the game, somebody to give you good feedback, okay, after the game in terms of how it went, how you're feeling, the recovery again, which I saw, Ross do. And again, when Michael Beale was the head coach at Rangers, Ross was there at Rangers when Steven Gerrard was there. All right. And it was from the outside, I looked at that and thought, what a dynamic that is. You've got Ross off the field, all right, that can communicate the message to the owners, okay, which is a really important part of it. When you're a manager, you have to trust someone to talk to them in a boardroom or on the phone after a win or even after a loss, more importantly. And then you had Stephen on the, in the dressing room that was I'm not saying he didn't do any work on the field, but he's a very good manager, right? You know, to motivate the players, pick the team, the tactics. And then you had Michael Beale, was an excellent coach on the grass. So them dynamics were really good. And it was no coincidence that Rangers did very well. Okay. So it's an important role. There's a lot going on with a lot of players now in big squads. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to manage. And it is an important role now at the clubs, and every club now, especially the top clubs, have that structure in their club. And it's really important that that sporting director, when he picks the head coach, that he has that alignment, that trust. And also, if they're going to be sort of not choosing the players totally, but part of that recruitment committee, that's another massive part of it.
Okay. Let's talk about something else at Chelsea, a subject that I actually find annoying and it irritates me. We saw it in England during the last international break. Madueke, does he deserve to start before Saka? The Cole Palmer Saka debate. Cole Palmer and maybe not showing up in big games. I think Cole Palmer is a ridiculous talent. I really do. But I also think it's ridiculous to compare him with Saka at this point in their careers. Now, if Cole goes off to win big trophies before Saka does, we can talk about that. But the disrespect for Saka, which I think is just for headlines and clickbait, because Arsenal are so big on social media. Talk to me a little bit about this, because there's no doubt Maresca has a jewel in his crown and his feather, whatever you call it. And Saka is without doubt one of three of our most important players. How do you look at players that don't turn up in big games? Cole, Saka, is it ridiculous to compare them at this point?
Well, yeah, I think they're both. There's big similarities between both players. I mean, young, exciting, creative, score goals, make goals, and they're both still developing. They really are. They're not yet right in their prime. They're developing, especially Palmer. You know, he's hit the ground running at Chelsea. Scores all types of goals. Plays as a 10, really. You know, he's someone in free role. Whereas you see Saka, he's so electric on that right side, cutting in on his left foot and making great decisions now. Saka, you know, when to play a give and go, when to beat his man without the ball, with the ball, when to cut in and shoot. So yeah, and he's finishing different types of finish. You know, that one he bends into the far corner or go for the near post. I think they're both so exciting, and the challenge, I suppose, with the England team is going to be can you get them both on the pitch at the same time? Are you able to play a system of play where Tuchel can get them both on the field? And if not, then so be it. You know, you have to fight it out. It's the way it is. Sometimes you get this, you know, in this sort of like a depth chart we've got with the England team right now, and the squad got so many good players, and there's a crossover in some cases where, you know, we've got 2 or 3 extremely top talented players that play in the same roles. So, but I do see these players as different players. I love their temperament. So, I think both players, if you look at their temperament, it's so encouraging and refreshing. Like on the last, I think it was the last game when Palmer went to shoot, and it was like it hit one of his teammates and he kept it out. He just laughed. He just turned around and smiled and laughed. And you see with Saka, you know, I looked at the penalty he scored. I mean, you look back and the poor guy misses for England, and he's got over those hurdles. So they've got bundles of character. They look like they really enjoy the game. They look like they're really low maintenance players to manage. And I would imagine that Mikel and Maresca are really thoroughly enjoying managing this type of player.
Yeah. Well, Vespa totally agrees with what you said there. We've saved the best till last. Mikel Arteta in our Ask the Gaffer episode here with Paul Buckle, former manager of Luton Town, and also recently managed San Diego Wave and the great Alex Morgan, which was pretty cool. He was doing that interim until they found their new manager, and what an experience that was. But here we are talking about Premier League managers and Mikel Arteta. Mikel regressed early this season. There's no doubt, as I mentioned, we suffered injuries and red cards. is that, again, comparing with Pep a little bit, you lose key players, right? You have red cards, but this is where the big bucks managers have got to show that they can get through. And I don't think our results were as bad, our performances were, but we still kind of were able to get results to just be sniffing around. What's your take on how Mikel's season has started and the adversity that he's faced?
Well, I think it's never easy when you lose your best players, and they did. If you look at Rice, suspended, and then he broke his toe from right insane. And if you lose your best players, as we've seen with Rodri, it's going to hurt you. It doesn't matter sometimes what you've got in the squad; it's going to hurt you. So you want to have your best players out there, and he hasn't had that all the time. And I think what you saw in the last game against Sporting, against a very, very good Sporting team, by the way, Arsenal demolished them. I mean, you all must take great hope and faith from that performance. What a complete performance in terms of goals from the right corner, beating a team that probably in the last 18 games, I think it was 17 wins and a draw. So I think you only can look at the last games, and that one's alongside the Forest game, really encouraging. Once he's got his full quota back on the field, the team, I think he knows his best team now, more or less. Okay, look very balanced. But yeah, when he's going to hit this again, and this is again, so when you pick your squad at the start of the season, all right, and we said before that Arsenal have gone with a smaller squad, okay, and that can hurt you. Sometimes, and I'm not saying this is the case with Mikel, but if you haven't had them experiences of managing, you would normally choose to go probably with a smaller squad because there's less problems. You're looking at a full squad at the start of the season saying, this is nice, I've got my team here, and then all of a sudden a few injuries, okay, and then players have got to come in and keep that level of performance, which is pressure on them players to come in when a team's doing really well. So there's pluses and minuses to having a bigger squad. If you're going to have a bigger squad, you've got to manage it. You've got to manage it, and if you get that part right, which I think Liverpool are getting right now, all right, you're not seeing a huge change when they make changes. Okay, it can be very, very effective, and it can be very dangerous if you go smaller squad, lose a few, and it can be very effective if you have a smaller squad and you get no injuries, you get nothing, and you get that great continuity, which is probably what every winning team and championship winning team has when you reflect and look back on it, as that continuity. Arsenal have a really, really good side out there. The question is going to be when injuries come or suspensions, and this is why it's important now that there's no stupid suspensions, that they remain disciplined now, because I think one of the greatest things for Mikel is that I feel like Arsenal have gone under the radar a little bit just lately with everything that's been going on with City and everything that was going on with Klopp going out, and everybody was seeing it really as a two-horse race. Liverpool have come into it. Chelsea are doing well. And I think those last two performances, as I said, have maybe been reflective of it, sort of things calming down a little bit. And I do think that Mikel is trying to go from a good manager to a great manager, Soph. And I honestly believe he'll get there. I really do. And I really hope Arsenal do give him the time, because it does take time with these other great teams around you.
Yeah, fair enough. And I like going under the radar. That's why I think Arne Slot at the beginning of the season, it was Arsenal versus Manchester City. Is this going to be the season we're going to do it? And can Pep win another one? What will his legacy be? At that point, he was supposed to be leaving in 2025. And Arne Slot was just quietly going about his business, because that story even was more about Klopp's legacy than Arne taking over. And so now the pressure and spotlight is on him. So let's see how he does as well. This was always a question. Super Kev and I used to go back and forth on this. When you see a manager not be able to get results or performances when his key players are out, then the players come back in. Are the players superior to Mikel's management ability? Is that fair or foul, Paul?
Oh, what a question. I think you realise when you're a manager, sometimes if you think it's about you soon realise when you do lose a couple of players, it's not, right? I think there's a balance there. I think you do need your best players. I think the skill in it as well is, so is when it's like during a game, right? It's like game management. You're winning. We spoke about it. 2-0 up. What? You'd never really. I don't think you see Pep or Mikel change or Ange. They go for the next goal and the next goal and the next goal, right? With a Mourinho, you see him go 1-0 up and park the bus. Okay, it's similar when you lose players. Do you go to the drawing board and have a plan B and a plan C, right? That you go to this game, have to keep it tight, win it in the second half, do you get me? It's like when you've got that full quota of players and you're going high press and you're going all out, fine. It's when can you change? Can you adapt? Are you willing to change? Are you willing to adapt? Which I suppose the question's been asked of Ange at Spurs with that, Else, really and truthfully, sometimes there is a danger unless you've got the best players in the world. Like,
Oh, we lost Paul. Let's see. Bring him back. We lost you. We lost you for a second there, Paul.
Oh, apologies.
Yeah, no worries.
Am I back?
Yeah, carry on. Yeah, you're back. Yeah.
I don't know where I was at. Yeah, I was just my point is like the management is, you see one style now, this one style that Ange's got, that Pep's got, that Mikel's got, where high press and I think that when you lose players, sometimes you do have to change. I think that you do need a plan B and a plan C sometimes, because those players might not be up to speed and as good as the other players sometimes. So sometimes you do have to change, and I've seen the change in Liverpool. I mean, Liverpool's change of tempo is fascinating to watch. I mean, you never know when they're going to hit you, and they take a rest with the ball. So I think that the management side of it there, where you lose your players, do you just go for a scrappy 1-0? I'm not sure that some of the managers will do that.
It's really a fascinating question, the player versus manager, and obviously it has to be a blend of both. Liverpool seem to have gone from heavy metal football to jazz. Jazz is kind of, all over you never know, right? You never know what you're going to get with jazz. Here's the final one for you on the Arsenal. Do we still have a chance of winning the league? And by the way, I know through your Brentford, you used to play for Brentford, Paul. I need to start putting that in the description. Former Brentford player, Paul Buckle. And I know how much you love the club and how much respect you have for David Raya, who's been one of our best players this season. Some of the saves he made, a lot of it was about us scoring 5 goals and being creative. But David Raya, eat and crow about that one. I have several times. Talk about the manager knowing what he was doing. To me, one of the unsung heroes. You've got Saliba, who just continues to excel. Odegaard showing his pure magic. And the trump card, the X factor of Waneri coming into this season. And of course, Big Gabby, who we saw training today and we need against West Ham, and we hope he's going to be okay to play, who is just a beast, an absolute beast on set pieces. Calafiori, I mean, there's other players in this image. And of course, we know about Saka. Havertz, who just does a lot of the dirty work. Martinelli, who seems to be finding his feet again. Do you think last season we got 4 points off City, we got 4 points off Liverpool? We've got City at home, Liverpool's going to be away. We managed to get a point there, beat them at home. What's your take? Do we still have a chance?
Absolutely, you do. All the time everyone's talking about Liverpool, Man City. I'd be delighted. I mean, you scored 8 goals, is it, in the last 2 games? Am I right?
Yeah.
That's right, isn't it? Forest and Sporting?
Yeah.
I mean,
3 against Forest and 5 against
home, 3 at home, 5 away. That's title contender form. So it really is. I mean, it really is. And Arsenal looked really good. I mean, the way they're moving the ball again, that looks like the Arsenal that was competing last year at the top when they were at their very best. I think it's wide open still. I think that Slot's not hit any type of bump in the road yet, has he? I mean, they could have.
They've just lost Canate. They've lost Canate. I don't know for how long. Maybe one of the squaddies can help me. But yeah, go on, Paul.
Well, they it wasn't a foregone conclusion against Southampton, was it? They had to rely on a pretty dreadful mistake by Southampton, which they've done a lot, unfortunately, coming out from the back. But other teams are not going to give them those early Christmas presents, that's for sure. So if City, I think a draw would be a good result for Arsenal. Actually, you claw back 2 points if you can go and beat West Ham, which I'm sure you can. I don't think it's over at all, and I think it's how patient the Arsenal fans can be. Okay, with winning the title, with Mikel winning a Premier League title. I think it's coming. I do. I honestly, I've said it all along. It does take time, and I think when you do win it, you could dominate it. I do. I think that he's going to be a great manager, and I hope Arsenal do stick with him and stay patient. But I do think you're still right in there.
The Saskia Guna's reporting that he thinks it's 5 weeks for Konate. That is a big difference. He has been one of their best players. Their adversity is going to come. We've been talking about it on the show for the last couple of weeks. And, they better pray Mo Salah stays fit, who's on fire, and I think one of the best right now in the Premier League. Let's do a couple of quick fire ones before we get you out, Paul. The other managers on the periphery, you've got Ange and Unai, who we know a little bit about. He's proven his prowess in Europe. He's won 4 Europa Leagues. Has he won 5 or 4? 4. I lose count. He couldn't win it with us, but that team was so apathetic. You've got Manager of the Year from London last year, Ange, who's done nothing other than leak goals. But you know what? They're still up there. And Ruben Amorim, who is the new boy on the block, the shiny new star for the media as well, who's unproven. Can you see any of those teams kind of, our Manchester United? We don't know yet if they're ready to kind of make another cyclical comeback. Emery, is he a bit overlauded when it comes to the league? Ange, does he even have a plan B? What's your take on these managers in a nutshell?
Well, Spurs, much to the delight of the Gooners, look like they're going to go on a good run, and then they get that tag of Spursy again, don't they? With a poor defeat at home, was it by Ipswich? So they're still showing those cracks that have been there for a number of years, which every manager's tried to iron out and make them more resilient. So Ange's got a job on his hands where that's concerned. I like the brand of football. I do like it. It's the highest line you'll ever see. But I do like it. And I do think, again, they need to stick and be patient. It's not Scottish football. It's as simple as that. It's no disrespect to Scottish football, but it's not. It's the Premier League. You're challenged every single week. I think Villa looked like they were going to be a real contender a few weeks back. They looked like they'd found it. They were solid. They were going to be there. It's changed quickly for them as well. So there's question marks there. And I think Amorim, it's early days, but already you can see that he is a top manager, a top coach. I've seen difference in them already in terms of their press, their organisation, coming out from the back with the ball. I've definitely seen things in them in a short space of time, so that's proved that he's improving them already, and he's got a big job on his hands, because United have some players that are, I'm going to say they're over the hill. That's disrespectful, but you know what I mean. They're done. He's going to need to find some legs in that midfield at Manchester United if they want to go and press the ball and be exciting. But yeah, I don't see any of them really yet being where they'd want to be, if I'm honest.
Yeah. There's something about the Man United manager, like, again, he's very likable, but I think he's going to become unlikable pretty quickly, because that something tells me he might be pretty decent. And he seems to not care. He's going to do it his way without worrying about too much of the Manchester United way, which has been non-existent. All right, we'll get you out on this one, Paul. You know about this subject as well. And it's been great having you on and getting your insights. You're a manager, you come up or you get relegated. You do well in the Championship. You're linked to maybe getting a job at Manchester United. You're Sean Dyche, who just doesn't seem to get any love from even Everton fans. Anti-football, they call it. And maybe a lot of people think, why does he keep getting he did a great job at Burnley, but why does he keep getting, the benefit of the doubt at Everton? And of course, Southampton, who love to play, and you spent a lot of time at the club. You talked about it just at the top of the show. A style of football that maybe is Vincent Company type of football that could get you relegated right away. What is the tougher job? Is it to be a manager going for the title race? Is it to be a manager who's managing a relegation battle? Stress and pressure is equal, I'm sure, but what do you think?
Well, I think it's a lot more stressful being down the bottom. That's from my experience. At the top, you have when you're at the top and you lose a game, you can sort of look back on the wins. You can look back and say, right, we did this wrong, we did that wrong. Players are more in form. There's definitely more to lean on. Whereas when you're losing games, players lose confidence. They can lose confidence in the manager. There can be a blame culture. You've got to keep spirits high. It can be so draining. So certainly when you're fighting down the bottom, I would say that's a lot worse for a manager than fighting at the top. And I'm sure those managers that have had the euphoria of going up and then all of a sudden, struggling, a bit like Luton with Rob Edwards, it's really tough. That's where management becomes very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's a fascinating conversation, and I just think the pressure of trying to stay in the Premier League and being a fan. I mean, look, it's been tough on Mikel Arteta. Fans expect, we've been up there the last 2 or 3 seasons. It is not easy beating the beast that is Manchester City. It's been heartache for fans, but the heartache of potentially going out of the Premier League as a fan and to have to experience and go through that is insane. Absolutely insane. What else is insane is your knowledge, Mr. Buckle. Thank you so much. I've really loved this conversation. I like bringing different conversations to our listeners. And it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. You can follow Paul, Buckle_Paul on Instagram. Please do go give him a follow. Right. What's your prediction for Arsenal West Ham?
Arsenal win that 2 or 3-0.
2 or 3-0. Yeah, I'm actually happy that West Ham beat Newcastle last weekend. I think that was to get that monkey off their back. I thought that was huge, obviously, not only for Lopetegui, but also for the team. And I would rather have gone into this with them having had that win and kind of maybe taking a breath, which might take their eye off the ball just a little bit. Mark, I fancy this scoreline too, a 3-1 to the Arsenal. And Mike says that is the correct answer, Paul. So yeah, I do too. I love Paul's take on stuff, and it's been a while since he's been on. It's been a bit mental, but we're going to be having Paul on a lot more as the season goes. Paul, what have you got coming up? What are you working on that you might want to share with the squaddies? Anything happening in your neck of the woods?
In football wise, you mean, Soph?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I had that. I really enjoyed that spell with the San Diego Waves. That was really great to be able to go and help them out as an interim coach, something I'd never done before. So enjoyed the 2 months there, working, as you said, with the likes of Alex and Nagama and world-class players, some great young players in a beautiful place. Lucky, very fortunate to go and work in such a beautiful place as well, and see the growth of the women's game. So, right in front of me, the growth of the women's game is fabulous. So, yeah, I had a wonderful time doing that. Brilliant. And but back to advising with owners, okay, and trying to make sure any club that I work with that they have a really good structure and a good plan and something where they can support the manager. I'm an advocate of managers staying in their job, because too many times we're losing really good coaches.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff. And by the way, Germa, I think, deserves a lot more respect than she's getting in the game. Okay, kids, don't forget to enter your put your hat in the ring to win the Zenith Coin Invincibles collection, the Highbury Squad at gmail.com, the Highbury Squad at gmail.com. You have until next week to tell me your best story from the Invincibles season, no more than 500 words. And let's get some more entries in, some good ones coming in. Still an opportunity for you. So email me, the Highbury Squad at gmail.com. And we'll be giving away the North Bank coin as well next week, and a lot more other stuff. And don't forget to visit Football Prizes as well. And if you missed any of our shows this week, catch James from AFTV talking about X Factors, our midweek musings, another good show with Potsy. And of course, tell everyone about today's show with Paul. That's all we got time for, kids. I will see you post West Ham. Until then, you know the rules of the house. Don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. At ease, squaddies, at ease. Take care.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
He'll try and work his way in however he can. See you guys.